Hello, welcome to Daryl's Beekeeping Videos. I'm a master beekeeper, and tonight's lesson is how to cross-wire a frame using fishing line. And the reason you might want to use fishing line is if you ever have queen cells that you want to cut out just a single queen cells, it is much easier to cut it out fishing line as opposed to using metal wire. I use the fishing line only in my brood chambers, and if I'm using for honey supers, I will use metal wire, and I also have another video on how to cross wire using metal wire. So for tonight's demonstration, I'm going to show you what you need, and I'm going to shut off the camera, come closer, and teach you how to do a specific knot, a couple series of knots, and then I'll reset and do the actual demonstration. So the equipment you're going to need for this tonight is you will need a frame, preferably a frame that has holes already in the end bars, but it's not critical because if you got the end bars that don't have holes, you can actually drill them yourself. I'm using a wedge top type of frame, and I've already removed the wedge. You will also need a piece of foundation. In this case, because this is meant to be for a brood chamber, I am using unwired foundation. You'll need a drill of some sort, either a corded drill or a cordless drill like this, and you'll need a 1/8 inch drill bit to clean out the holes. You'll need a hammer of some sort. You'll need either a claw hammer or a tack hammer like this. This is my favorite hammer to use when I'm dealing with foundation or frames. This is a hammer from Harbor Freight, and it is a Pittsburgh 7-ounce tack hammer. And the reason I like this is when you buy traditional tack hammers from your local hardware store or from the big box stores, they're usually only about 3/4 an inch. The head is only about 3/4 an inch longer than this, or shorter than this. So I like this because it has the much longer head, and I can get in closer as I'm tacking stuff in without worrying about hitting the foundation as much. You will also need a pair of diagonal wire cutters. You'll need either a nail kit or simply 2 3/4 inch long nails if you have a deep frame. If you have a medium frame, you only need one. Basically, you need one nail for every 2 holes that are in your end bars. In this case, because I'm using a deep frame, there are 4 holes. I need 2 3/4 inch long nails. You then need some type of fishing line, whatever is cheapest for you in your area. I like to use 15-pound test. The bees don't seem to break it as often. And you can either use this red or you can use whatever color. It really doesn't matter. For the demonstration, I'll probably use one of each just to show you. I don't know if it's just my way I purchased it, my dumb luck of when I purchased it. The red seems to be a little slicker, vice the whitish or greenish color fishing line, which I find a bit easier to hold. But again, whatever works for you. It really doesn't matter. It's all you're doing is you're providing rigidity to the foundation, a little bit of support, so that way if you were to ever inspect it and accidentally lift it horizontal, which you should never do, but if you do, it's just keeping the comb from falling out. That's why we put horizontal cross wiring in. So now I'm going to shut the camera off, come a little closer, and do the knot demonstration, so that way when I start doing the actual wiring, you'll be able to know what I'm doing from far. Alright, I've repositioned my camera, and I have 2 different colored ropes for this demonstration just to help you see what the knot is actually doing. So all I'm going to do first is I'm going to create a square knot and 2 1/2 inches on either side of that square knot whenever I actually make it on my frame. So all you do is you put left over right, much like tying your shoes. Put it left over right. So you get this nice little twist, again, just like you're doing when you're tying your shoes. Then I'm going to do right over left. See, the right is now over left, and I pull that through. And then what you have are 2 interlocking bites. The bite is that loop. So you have 2 interlocking bites. You'll cinch that tight. Then I'm going to simply take my free running end, that's the loose end of the rope, or in this case the fishing line, whenever we get to it, I'm just going to go around the same side that I'm on and then back through that hole that I just created and pull it through. That is a half hitch, if you can see it. There's my knot, there's my half hitch, and I just tighten it down. Then I simply take the same line and I do another half hitch, go around the standing portion. The standing portion is the long portion of your line, and then I come through, and then I've got 2 half hitches on this side of the rope, or in this case, when we get ready to do it, it'll be the fishing line. And then what I like to do when you'll see me do it, I actually like to flip it around, the frame around, and then just for better control, and then I go over with this one. I go through that hole again, creating another half hitch on the opposite side of the knot now. And I do that one more time so that I get 2 half hitches, and I cinch it up nice and tight, and then I've got a nice tail on the either side of it. And when you do this, you'll see when I actually do it, I'm actually going to have probably 6 inches or more of tails, just so I can easily hold on to it, and I'll later trim that off. So I've got, again, the process is a square knot first, and then 2 half hitches on each side of that square knot. So now that you know what I'm going to be doing on the frame, you'll understand what I'm doing as I'm actually doing it. All right, so now I'm back at my table. Only thing I've done so far is I've just simply taken my nail container off the table to give me a little bit more room to work. And so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my frame that's already assembled. Again, mine is a wedge top frame. Again, if you watch the other couple of my other videos, I talk about the various frames and how to assemble them. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my drill and I'm going to clean out all 4 of these holes on each side. And then I simply flip my frame around and I do it again. And now I can set my drill aside. The reason that you want to drill out those holes is when you get the end bars from the manufacturer, a lot of times these holes are somewhat closed over still from the debris from the woods where it's not fully cleared holes. So I use, again, it will make your life much easier if you clean those holes out, especially when you're doing the cross wiring with fishing line. With metal wire, it's not as bad because metal wire has some rigidity and it'll go through, but with fishing line, it tends to bind it up a little bit, so I always clean out my holes. And because I am using fishing line, I do not have to use grommets. If you've seen my other video, I don't have to use grommets, or also called eyelets, in this, because the fishing line is not going to cut into the wood, whereas metal wire would. So I've cleaned this out now. So the next thing I want to do is I like to have, anytime I'm doing nailing, I like to have a spare piece of plywood or wood to set on my table to help keep me from nailing through and into my good table or my workbench or whatever you have. So again, so I set my scrap stock underneath, and then from there I'm going to take a look at where these holes are on the end bar. I'm going to put a 3/4 inch nail in between each one of those holes. So in this case, I like to work from my left to right. This is just my preference. It really doesn't matter, but you're going to put the nails on the same side as each other. All right, so in this case, I'm going to go over here. My nails are here and here, and I'm going to simply roughly center it. It doesn't have to be exact. I'm just going to get it started to the tack stable, but I'm not going to hammer it in. The reason for that is when I totally get done with my fishing line, I'm going to wrap the tails around that and then hammer it in before I cut those tails off. So then I grab my other 3/4 inch nail and I go down between the next 2 holes and I tack that in place. again until it gets nice and set. From there, I'm going to take my fishing line and cut it open or take it off. So again, I know it's kind of hard to see from there, but I'm going to run it through. In this case, I've got the fishing lines bent a little bit, so I'm just going to clip it off. I'm going to run it through, in this case, the topmost hole over to the other hole. And I'm going to run it through, pull out about an arm's length, and then I'm going to simply run it through that next hole down, back over to the opposite side, again going from the inside of the frame to the outside. And when I did that nice arm pull, it gives me about enough tail that I need. So from there, I simply grab the tails, make sure they don't slip out of my hand, and then I cut my fishing line. So now I have, and I'll bring it a little closer where you can see it. Hopefully you'll be able to see it. I've got, maybe I can stand in front of it. No, you can't really see it. But I've got a fishing line going down here and down here where I put them through the two holes. So now I'm going to bring it back. And again, the other reason I like this, to have this 3/4 inch piece of plywood scrap, is it gives me a place to put this top of this frame over the edge, and now I've got a nice solid contact underneath. So now, again, it's all I'm going to do, like I showed you before with the 2 different color ropes. I'm going to do a simple square knot. At this point, I'm not worrying about it being tight, because I'll tighten it down once I actually cinch the knot down. So I go left over right, and now I cinch it down. When I cinch it down, I'm pulling on it, and I'm going to take my index finger and hold that knot. And then with the free running end of that line in my left hand, I'm just holding it with 2 to 3 fingers, just to hold it steady. And then from there, I go, see, I went over left. Let me do it again. So I go left over right, hold it down with my index finger, and now I go right over left. Again, play with it, but you'll get the hang of it. So right over left, and then you may have to use your teeth. All right, so I've got my square knot, and then I pull up, I put my index finger up underneath this little knot that I just made to help give it some space. And then I go and do my 2 half hitches on either side. Again, the tighter you get it, to make it, it's a little bit better. So 1 half hitch, 2 half hitches. And again, just to make life easier on myself, I swip my frame around to the opposite end. In this case, it's not going to go over the edge, but that's okay. And then I do another half hitch on the opposite side of the knot. Missed it. Again, by pulling up, I can pull it through. 1 half hitch, 2 half hitches, and then I simply take this and pull up on my tail, and you'll see it form a little triangle as it pulls through. And then I just take that little triangle where the knots are, and I go up and over that little nail that I initially put in, and then I do 2 to 3 wraps around that nail that I put in. If you do 4, that's fine. I set it back down, and then I take my hammer. I hammer that nail all the way into the wood, and then from there, I can simply take my diagonal wire cutters and then trim that off, the excess tail off. Again, I'll try to come closer, see if it shows up now. If not, I'll have it, yeah, now you can see it a little bit better in your video. So here's one wire. Here's the other wire. I'll flip it around, and you can see the nail, and then you can see the where I've just pulled it up and over it. Okay, so now I'm going to go back, and I'll show it to you with the clear line. It doesn't really matter. You know, you can use one color. I personally, again, because I found that red line a little bit more slick, I actually like this lighter colored line. All right, so I already have my nail in place. So now I'm simply going to run this through the other hole. It's a little harder to see this line as it goes through because it is clear, but sometimes you can use reading glasses if you want to help you pull it through, but you'll get the hang of it. What I usually do is to compensate for that, I usually put about 1/4 inch of this line out for my fingernails, and I can guide my fingernails into the hole and that usually lines it up really nicely. And then from there, once I see it go in the hole, then I can push it all the way through. All right, so again, I just put about 1/4 inch past my fingernails, slide it into the holes. Once my fingers make contact, I know it's pretty much in the hole. I slide it all the way through. And then because I pulled out my arm when I initially did it, I had enough slack, I saw. So from there, I can trim off the excess, flip it up, and now one in each hand. I simply go left over right, cinch it down tight, hold it down with my index finger, and then again, like I said, I've got 2 to 3 fingers hold it against here. From here, I just transfer fingers. Again, keep my index finger on that knot at all times, and then from there, I work my fingers and I go right over left, and I reach down with my teeth and grab that free running end of the one that was originally in my left hand, pull my knot up, and then I'll do my 2 half hitches. 1, 2, flip my frame around just to keep things oriented, and then I transfer that string that was in my left hand holding everything together to my right hand, so then I can do my 2 half hitches on the opposite side. You'll work out what works for you. That's what just works for me, and that way I know I've got the lines to 2 knots on either side. All right, so then from there, I just simply pull it up tight again, form that little triangle, flip it over the nail head, 2, 3 to 4 wraps around that nail, tack it in place, and then I have my line there. And next, I'm gonna pause the video for a second while I photograph this piece for you, and then I'll come back and I'll show you how to install foundation in this. It's much simpler than the metal wire one. All right, I took the still photo to include in the video for you to show you a close-up of what I just did. So next thing I'm going to do is, if you've watched my other videos on how to assemble frames and how to install foundation, I show you that when you take out these wedge tops, most of the time when you try to put them back in the wedge, it's a tight fit and they tend to bow up, just like this one's trying to bow up on me. You'll see it's actually trying to bow like this on me. So to prevent that, I just take a precautionary cut from it. So I take my diagonal wire cutters and I simply cut off about a 1/16, maybe an 1/8 of an inch off of this wedge. And that's the quickest and the easiest way I've found to take that off. And then when you go to put it in, it just slips in nice and easy. And you can always take more off. And that little bit of a gap between the wedge and the end bar, the bees will fill that in with beeswax or propose, so it's not a big deal. So again, I do that. The next thing I want to do is I want to take and prime my wedge top. And if you've seen in my other videos, you'll know that I use 3 5/8 inch nails to put in this wedge. And when I do it, I'm going to put them at an angle. Again, I'm using a scrap piece of wood, in this case my 3/4 inch thick plywood, so I'm not going into my good table. So I'm going to take this nail, I'm going to go in the center, left to right of this wedge. I'm going to come back about 1 inch to 2 inches from the end, so that when I tack this nail in and to tack the foundation in, I'm not hitting the end bar. So again, I'm coming back about 1 inch to 2 inches, centering it left to right. And then from there, I'm angling it, so that way when I hit the hammer, it'll drive it into the foundation. So I come back, tack, and I just tack it through until I feel it go through. And if I took it too far, I can just simply put it, the wedge over the edge of the plywood support and then just back it out a little bit. Again, so I do one on that end, I do one on the opposite end. Again, center it left to right, hold it with my fingers, and then just tack it in at an angle until I feel it come through, or until it gets solid. From there, I take the third one and go roughly about halfway in between those 2 nails. It doesn't have to be an exact science. It's not an exact measurement, just eyeball it. and I'm good to go. It's nice and solid in there. I'm good to go. Next thing I want to do, I'm going to flip my support around where it's a little easier to manage. I want to get my foundation out. When you get the foundation, it comes with this wax paper backing. You simply pull that off. You can use this for smoker fuel or anything else you want to use it for, or just trash it. You're done with it for now. So the next thing I'm going to do is on this frame, I'm going to turn it upside down. Because this is an unwired foundation, I don't have to worry about the hooks. If I had wired foundation, as if you were doing it with the metal wire, you'd want those hooks, the tips of the hooks facing you, and on against this, you're going to put it in against this top of the frame against that rabbet. In this case, because I don't have hooks, it's not that critical of how I place it in there. So it's all I'm going to do is I'm going to do a weave through these 4 wires. If you're doing a medium-sized frame, you only have 2 wires, so you only have to do 2 weaves, just weaving it in. So in this case, I always bypass this topmost wire so that I'm not having to go through this really small gap. It's much easier to come behind it and then go through the next one down. So again, you can either do it vertical or you can start it off horizontally. I generally like to start off horizontally and then I quickly go vertical after that. So again, I'm bypassing that first wire and then I'm going over, or in this case toward the camera of that other one. Now I'm going vertical and I'm simply taking my fingers and I'm working it down, and I'm going, so the very first one I bypassed the top wire, I went toward the camera in front of the second wire down, and now I'm coming back toward me, just weaving it in toward me behind that third wire. And then as I get down to the 4th wire, I go toward the camera until I go past it. Once I get toward the bottom, I simply move I like to put my foundation off to one side, and then I take my fingers and kind of like I'm praying almost, and I take my fingers and I just work the foundation into this groove. And I personally like the grooved bottom type frame. If you have the older style slatted or slotted bottom frame, then some of the older ones still have that saw kerf and has a little bit of residual wood in the corners. If you have that, you may have to simply cut a corner out of your a corner square out of each corner of your foundation. The newer slatted bottom frames have a groove all the way through, and there's not that little piece of wood in the corner, so it's not a big deal. But my personal choice is a groove bottom and a wedge top type frame. And again, I have a video on which frames to use. All right, so again, I just simply put it in one corner, start one corner, and just work my way back as I go through. In this case, when I put it in, I got pretty lucky. It actually fell all but about a couple inches. It actually went straight in the hole. Once I get it from there, I simply take it and I center it between the two, and then I take my hands and I push the wax down against the wedge top of that rabbet, of that top. Now, if you have a situation where the manufacturer has made the foundation a little too long, you can simply take the wax back out, and then you can take a metal rule, put your foundation down, and then you can take a metal rule, as if this were my metal rule, I would lay my foundation down, and then I would lay the metal rule on top of it, and being careful where my fingers are, and then I could take a utility knife and then use that metal rule as a guide and take my razor blade or my utility knife and then simply go through the wax that way and cut about 1/8 of an inch of that wax off. And if you have foundation that has vertical support wires, then you simply go back with a diagonal pair of wire cutters and cut those excess wires that are hanging off. In this case, I'm using unwired foundation, so it's not a big deal. All right, and in this case, I got lucky and my foundation actually fits in the frame. So from there, I'm going to simply put my wedge in, and it's all I'm going to do is I'm going to take it and place it with the top of the frame down. I'm going to make sure my wedge has it where the nails are facing at an angle outward. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to come down, I'm going to put my place the foundation as tight as I can against the top of the frame now. And then I'm going to take my wedge and put it in, and I'm going to squeeze with 2 fingers as tight as I can to try to pinch that wedge against that back of the rabbet portion of the frame top, and try to pinch that wax in between. And then I'm going to hit my nail in. And you can see now part of the reason why I put that nail about 1 inch to 2 inches into the wedge. So again, I do the same thing on the opposite end. I squeeze as tight as I can. I tack it in place, and now because my fingers can't reach that back side, I just simply hold it as tight as I can and push it down and in, and then I hammer that 3rd nail in place. And I'll pull a little closer, and you can see, probably can't see the nails there, but I've got 1 nail here, 1 nail here, and then 1 nail up here, and it is wedged tight. And because this is fishing line, I do not have to go in with a spur embedder and go over top of this line, because it's sitting right against it as is. And that is how you cross wire a frame with fishing line. So thank you for watching, and have a great day.